I've been trying to find good people for so long. I'm tired, bro.
You done tap?
I would say this. It's a 100%, bro. It's so okay to be tired, though.
I got, you know what I'm saying?
You ain't got nothing left. You ain't got nothing left to give.
I'll tell you this, bro. I'll be it.
Michael Beasley broke down on camera, live, and months later, he came out and said something nobody expected that in that moment. He wanted to put his hands on Ryan Clark. Now, Ryan Clark has responded, and what he said might be the most mature response you'll see in sports media all year. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story goes places you don't expect.
I've been trying to find good people for so long. I'm tired, bro.
You done tap?
I would say this. It's a 100%, bro. It's so okay to be tired, though.
I got, you know what I'm saying?
You ain't got nothing left. You ain't got nothing left to give.
I'll tell you this, bro. I'll be it. Like, whatever you need, dog. Like, if you just want to talk, like, I for sure can't hoop with you. I'll go out there and pass that hole. Like, what we're saying is, bro, like, we want to be those people. Bringing you here wasn't about this. I wanted to talk basketball and hoops, but, dog, folks love you, dog. Nobody want to see you go through this.
I got me a Beasley jersey out the motherfucking house, because I was down here when he got drafted.
I think the thing is, man, like, so many times as black men, we are asked because of talent to carry everybody. We are not made to carry everybody. Black women are asked to carry everybody. They are not made to carry everybody. Dog, it takes a fucking village, bro. And at some point, you gotta have somebody who don't need from you, who don't want from you, who wanna see you win, man. Like, we don't do this for us. Yeah.
If you watched the Pivot podcast when this episode dropped, you already know this clip. Michael Beasley, one of the most talented players of his draft class, sitting there completely raw, talking about being tired, about being asked to carry people who were never built to carry everyone around them. This wasn't a scripted sports segment. This was a man in real pain, live on camera, in front of millions of people, and it's exactly why what came next became such a big story.
Because I just thought it was disrespectful. Yeah. But, like, I like him.
Yeah.
So I didn't even want to say this on camera. I don't care. The Pivot podcast, I didn't know anything about podcasts. Mm-hmm. I just thought niggas was in their rooms and shit like that, right? So when I pulled up to that one, like, sort of like, just like this, just coming out the gym, and just got some regular dirty clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to the Big Three podcast, and Beasley finally explains what was actually going on in his head during that moment. He says he didn't even fully understand what the pivot was when he showed up. He thought he was just pulling up to talk basketball, not walk into one of the most viral emotional interviews in recent sports media memory. That context matters. Beasley wasn't prepared for the format. He wasn't prepared for cameras. And according to him, that lack of preparation is exactly where things started to go wrong.
What's that?
Because Ryan Clark, like, I was talking about my mother, and Ryan Clark was kind of like, look at me and still look at them behind, telling them to do whatever he was doing with the cameras and shit, which I thought was disrespectful.
Because you pouring your heart on talking about your mom at that point. Yeah, got you.
You know what I'm saying? So I really, like, because I just thought it was disrespectful. But, like, I like him.
Here's the accusation everyone's been talking about. Beasley says that in the middle of him opening up about his mother, one of the most vulnerable parts of the entire interview, Ryan Clark's attention wasn't fully on him. He says Clark was looking past him, toward the producers, toward whoever was working the cameras behind the scenes. And that's the moment Beasley says pushed him to the edge. Not the questions, not the topic. The feeling that his pain was being managed as content instead of received as a real conversation between two people.
In the day that they need help. Like, when I was crying on the pivot, I wasn't crying. I was holding the tear back because I wanted to punch him. Because I just thought it was disrespectful. But, like, I like him.
This is the line that made headlines. Beasley admitting flat out that what looked like him crying on camera was actually him holding back rage. He says the emotion everyone saw wasn't sadness in that specific second, it was him restraining himself from reacting physically to how the moment felt. Let that sink in. Millions of people watched that clip and read it as grief. Beasley is now saying it was closer to fury-controlled, but real. That's a massive gap between what the audience saw and what was actually happening inside the room.
You know what I'm saying? So I really, because I just thought it was disrespectful. But, I like him.
And this is where the story stops being simple. Because right after saying you wanted to put hands on Ryan Clark, Beasley says something that complicates the entire narrative. He still likes him. He's not calling Clark an enemy. He's describing a moment that hurt from someone he still respects. That's not the language of beef. That's the language of somebody processing a moment that felt bad in real time without wanting to destroy the relationship over it. Keep that in mind, because it's exactly the tone Ryan Clark picks up on when he finally responds.
Man, honestly, I got nothing but love and respect for Michael Beasley. I don't care what he said. I'm not finna get out here and talk tough and talk about being physical.
So now the ball is in Ryan Clark's court. He's just heard publicly that a guest on his show felt disrespected enough to say he wanted to fight him. This is the point where a lot of media personalities would get defensive, would clap back, would turn it into a back and forth for views. Ryan Clark doesn't do that. Listen to the very first thing out of his mouth: love and respect, no hesitation, no conditions attached to it.
What he said. I'm not finna get out here and talk tough and talk about being physical. And also, I'm not gonna disrespect him because I'm tired of seeing us on these platforms go at one another for other folks' entertainment. I said it over and over again. Without Michael Beasley,
this is the moment that separates this response from every other clapback video you've seen in sports media. Ryan Clark explicitly refuses to escalate. He says he's not going to match Beasley's comment about wanting to fight with tough talk of his own. And then he says something even bigger, that without that interview, without Michael Beasley trusting them with that moment, the Pivot podcast might not be what it is today. He's not distancing himself from Beasley. He's crediting him for the platform's biggest turning point.
What I do know is this: I prepared for that show for hours the way I prepare for every show, because you never know where it's going to go. And when it got to a place where he was emotional, in that moment, it was my job to hold space for him and let him know that, at least in that moment, on our platform, in a spot that we're grateful that he's opening up to us.
Here's Ryan Clark explaining his actual mindset in that room, not defending himself, but describing what he believed his responsibility was in that exact second. According to him, the goal wasn't to capture emotion for content. It was to make sure Beasley didn't feel alone in that moment. Now, does that fully answer Beasley's accusation about where Clark's eyes were pointed during the interview? Not entirely. But it does tell you what Clark believes he was trying to do, even if the execution, in Beasley's eyes, didn't land that way.
That he's not alone. That was why I texted and reached out afterwards, just to let him know that I was a man of my word, that when I said on the show that we would be here for him, I know Chan did the same thing, that we really were. And so even in this space...
This is a detail that a lot of people missed. Ryan Clark says that after that episode aired, he didn't just move on to the next guest. He personally reached out to Beasley, checking on him, making sure he knew the door was still open. That's not something you do for a guest you only saw as content. That's something you do for someone you actually care about, following up with even before this current controversy ever became public.
What I want to say to him is this: if there was a time during our sit down where he felt like I didn't have his best interest in the front of my mind or as a priority or in my heart, that's wrong. Because that entire time, all I could think about was how grateful.
Pay attention to how carefully Ryan Clark words this next part. He's not saying I'm sorry for what I did. He's saying if Beasley felt disrespected, that feeling itself matters and needs to be acknowledged regardless of Clark's intention in the moment. That's a subtle but important distinction. It's not a confession of guilt. It's an acknowledgement that impact matters even when intent was never to cause harm. A lot of public figures never learn how to do that. Ryan Clark just did it publicly without being forced into it.
And so all I would tell him, if I could, because his number has changed since then, is my number is still the same. I would be willing to talk to you. I would love to have the conversation, because even in this space, I'm so grateful for what you did for us on that night. That was never a setup. It was never an intention to be disrespectful.
And here's the moment that turned this into an emotional story instead of a beef story. Ryan Clark says his number hasn't changed since that interview, and he's inviting Beasley to actually call him. Not through a producer, not through a mutual friend, directly. Think about how rare that is in this environment. Two men in the middle of a public disagreement about respect and boundaries, and one of them responds by opening the line of communication wider instead of shutting it down.
Captured the raw emotion of what he had been dealing with, because it's important. I always say his story is just as important as the player that goes on to make hundreds of millions of dollars in their career, because you need to see that it can go multiple ways just based off of certain decisions, who you have around you, who's in your circle, even, you know, the part about your parent taking money from you, right? Like, everything that Michael Beasley went through is very important for these young athletes to hear, because we see it as a cycle, you know, where it continuously happens to players over and over again. And most players that play in the NBA are not going to sign the contracts to James Harden, LeBron James.
Okay. Step back from the personal conflict for a second, because there's a bigger point buried in all of this. Beasley's story, the mismanaged money, the people around him who weren't actually helping, the pressure of being a former number 2 overall pick who didn't have the career people expected. That story matters far beyond one uncomfortable interview. Most players never sign the max contracts. Most careers last around 5 years. Beasley's rawness on that show wasn't just entertainment, it was a warning for every young athlete coming up behind him about what can happen when the wrong people are in your circle. Here's where this actually lands. Beasley's frustration was real. He felt like his pain was being managed instead of simply received, and that feeling doesn't need Ryan Clark's permission to be valid. But Ryan Clark's response shows something just as real. A man who could have gotten defensive, could have turned this into a public feud for views, and instead chose accountability, credit, and an open door. Neither one of them is really the villain here. That might be the most refreshing part of this entire story. Two men who went through something raw and public, disagreeing on how it felt, but both still choosing respect over ego. So no, this wasn't a fight. It wasn't even really beef. It was two men handling a misunderstanding the way more people in this industry should, with maturity, not headlines. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Ryan Clark's response, or do you think Beasley's still owed more? Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update on this story.